All right, we'll let Lan take it away.
All right. Hello, everyone. It's my pleasure to be able to talk about the rainforest today. I've been part of this since its inception, and it's awesome that I get the chance to present it today. First of all, I don't know if how many of you were on the Friday lunch hour with the author of Rainforest. For me, I was so starstruck because I've read his book, over the last few years, and now I get to see the actual author, and like I was totally speechless. So it's just like seeing your idol. Just let me go back a bit. Let's just talk a bit about etiquette. Use your hand, raise hand function to if you want to add comments and I have questions, to put in the chat so that Bridget can moderate that. Please stay muted while Marnie speaks, and then we will have the chat resources in Slack. That's awesome. So what is the rainforest? I think most of you who are here, you know that it's mainly an analogy. It's not actually the rainforest. And we know that innovation is it's messy, right? It's not understood, controlled, and optimized with an expected outcome. It's a wild, untamed space, and that's where ideas come about. And this is where we all get together, and create an environment that is similar to rainforest. So I'm going to read verbatim on the vision, the mission, because it is so important. Our vision is a world-class community of dreamers and doers connected by a common goal of making Alberta fertile ground for building, developing, and growing innovative ideas into sustainable ventures. And our mission is to connect the innovation ecosystem by strengthening the movement behind Alberta tech industry around a framework of shared values of collaboration, community, and trust through storytelling. Here's our social contract. Those of you who have not already signed it, I strongly encourage everyone to participate. The 10 values here are something that I think we all do anyway without really having it put down in words, but it is good to always remind ourselves of it. One of my favorite is pay it forward, give and do not expect anything in return. And also to have that openness and honesty and of sharing. So the premises behind all this is, by creating trust, we get things done much quicker. And here are the 6 pillars of the rainforest. And true enough, culture and leaders are the 2 strongest pillars. And that is awesome because that's where you are part of it. The 2 pillars, the community and the leaders, that's who you are. And that's why together we're going to build a community of trust. So with that, I'll give it back to you, Bridget.
Awesome. Thanks, Lan. Love that. Love the pay it forward. Don't forget about the Slack channel. Once you've signed the social contract, you can get into the Slack channel. And just a reminder that it's not just there for, the asks and the, when we're looking for something, but also to offer those pay it forwards or giving back. So it's there for you to have conversation and share in this virtual world we're living in. So we're going to get into our speaker for the day. For those of you who are here for the first time, if you could use the reactions button at the bottom of the screen to give a little hi or wave. And then for the first time, Russ, this is not your first time. For those who are not new, feel free to reach out to some of our newcomers and welcome them. Quite a few of you in the room, so thanks a lot for coming today. The structure of our virtual Lunch Without Lunch normally, although things are always changing, is that we have a guest speaker or a panel join us for the first half hour-ish of the hour, and we have some engaged conversation around that topic at hand. And then we usually head into some breakout rooms so that we can have some of these collisions that Rainforest is really well known for, where you can meet people you would never otherwise meet, especially when we're all working from home. So it's a great opportunity to meet some new folks in the innovation community. So with that all said, we'll come back at the top of the hour for some community announcements. So if you have some of your own that you would like to share, you can prepare those for when we finish the hour up. So thanks again, everybody, for coming. Today, we are going to be talking about intellectual property. It's a topic that's been discussed in the rainforest, I'm sure, several times, and yet an important one, especially for founders in the room or potential founders in the room who are thinking about bringing their idea to life or commercializing it. And so today we have Marnie Fyten. Did I pronounce that right, Marnie? Is it Fyten?
Well done.
Thank you. Marnie is an intellectual property advisor with the Canadian Intellectual Property Office based in Edmonton, and she covers Alberta, Saskatchewan, and the Northwest Territories. She is responsible for conducting outreach with startups and SMEs to raise awareness of the importance and value of IP for business success and to promote CIPO's suite of free tools and learning resources. Marnie also provides free, unbiased information and guidance on how to build an IP strategy to maximize value from investments in innovation. So Marnie comes to us with a Bachelor of Science in Biology and an MBA. She's lived and worked in Edmonton, Saskatoon, Yellowknife, and Ottawa, so all over the country. And she has broad public service experience with 3 levels of government, 2 federal central agencies, and several frontline departments in the areas of public policy development and program design and delivery, risk management, and oversight. So tons of experience here today. We're really looking forward to hearing from you, Marnie. And I'll just let everybody know to keep the conversation going in the chat if you have anything to add or questions. And then once Marnie's done presenting, we'll head into some of that conversation. So I'll hand it over to you, Marnie.
Thanks very much, Brigitte. And good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for taking your lunchtime to be here. My name is Marnie, and I'm an intellectual property advisor with the Canadian Intellectual Property Office, or CIPO. So I work directly with startups and small and mid-sized businesses across Alberta, Saskatchewan, and the Northwest Territories, based here in Edmonton. And when I work with a client, my information and guidance is 100% free and unbiased. So I think it was mentioned, as questions come to mind, do put them in the chat or Q&A. I'll likely answer them towards the end, but Brigitte or Lan, if there's something relevant to a slide I'm on, go ahead and interrupt, and I'll do my best. So if you hear something that's relevant to a project that you're working on or an experience you've had in business, give me a thumbs up or type a few words in the chat box if you don't mind. I'd really appreciate that feedback. So my goal over the next 15 minutes is to equip you to recognize some of the common IP mistakes and how to avoid them as you build and scale an innovative business. If my Wi-Fi signal goes sketchy, I'll turn off my my camera, but it appears to be okay so far. Okay, don't worry, I won't spend a lot of time on this. 1 minute. So for those who may not know, CIPO is the Government of Canada agency responsible for the administration of IP rights across Canada, rights like granting patents and maintaining the official register of Canadian trademarks. So our mandate includes the 5 areas you see on the left, and the 6 IP advisors like myself, we focus on the 3rd one, and that's doing outreach to raise awareness of the value of IP and to help entrepreneurs make effective and strategic use of it. Important to note that we do not give legal advice. So I can't tell you if you'll have freedom to operate in the United States. In other words, if you're at risk of infringing existing IP, whether you should register your trademarks in China, or what language or templates to use for non-disclosure agreement, for example, or licensing arrangements. But I can, however, help you understand why these are vital considerations for your business and why it's worth your money to pay a registered patent or trademark agent or an IP lawyer for professional advice. If there are any agents or lawyers taking part today, feel free to introduce yourself in the chat and mention if there are particular sectors or areas of technology that you specialize in. So CIPO also does not provide funding of any kind. But our information and guidance is free as a public service, and we can help you save money by learning the basics about IP and the things you can do yourself to prepare for and to make really effective use of your time with an IP professional in terms of those billable hours. So a lightning quick reminder of the different kinds of IP. So anyone who's been to one of my hour-long, what I call the full Monty IP presentations, you'll recognize this slide. If you haven't had the pleasure, reach out and I'll put you on my list for the next full seminar. So trademarks, patents, copyrights, plant breeders' rights, and of course, trade secrets. To learn a bit about each of these, go to SIPO's online IP toolbox, and you'll find very brief one-page fact sheets on each kind of these, and a free IP inventory checklist to help you take stock of yours. From there, head into our IP Academy to learn more about the kinds of IP that you're interested in with our e-learning modules. So these have excellent content. They're very easily digestible, and they only take 30 to 45 minutes to go through each. And I'll put links to the IP Academy and Toolkit into the chat at the end. So why should you care about IP? Well, because in 2019, 90% of the value of companies on the S&P 500 was from their ownership of intangible assets, including their IP and data holdings. So that figure is up from around 80% 15 years ago. And back in 1985, which isn't really all that long ago, it was only 30%. IP also matters because taking stock of yours and your competitors can help you avoid costly mistakes. Understanding the competitive landscape from an IP perspective, that can stop you from investing money and effort in something you don't have the rights to, or that has maybe already been done. Understanding the IP landscape in your technology sector or area can also identify opportunities to partner and collaborate. And you can also tell which of your competitors' employees are the key innovators. And you can search for gaps in that IP landscape, which could be a market niche for you to fill. IP can also help attract investors and create revenue streams if your business strategy is to license it to others or maybe to sell it outright. So moving into the common IP mistakes. Number one mistake is thinking about your IP too late. It's truly vital to identify the IP that's important to your competitive advantage and to take steps to ensure that you own it, or at the very least have permission or license to use it. And the importance of this, it magnifies if you're doing business outside Canada, and that includes over the internet or if you manufacture or assemble abroad. I can unfortunately tell you that I know of more than a few sad stories about Alberta companies that have discovered counterfeits of their products for sale on Alibaba, or have had to completely rebrand after they went too far with an unregistered trademark without taking 10 minutes to do a very quick, a quick and dirty do-it-yourself trademark search, which you can do online. And you do that to see if someone has already registered the trademark that you have in mind, and if they're using it in a similar goods and services. So for a proper professional trademark clearance search, we definitely recommend that you work with a registered trademark agent on that. But for a do-it-yourself search, you can do that through the WIPO, World Intellectual Property Organization Global Brands Database, and I'll give you a link to that later. So the situation of the entrepreneur that had to rebrand, she described this as a very expensive lesson because they'd already established a customer base and a website. They'd manufactured product, printed brochures, packaging, and sales tags. So one really good way, perhaps the best, to mitigate the risk of mistake number one thinking about your IP too late. It's to develop an IP strategy early on and then revisit that and how you implement it as your business grows. You'll find SIPO's free interactive IP strategy planning tool in the IP Academy. And I also cover how to build a strategy in my, my full hour-long seminar. So mistake number 2. This is assuming that IP laws and practices are the same everywhere. But in fact, IP rights are territorial or country by country. And there are differences and even peculiarities in each jurisdiction. And this arises from national laws, regulations, and court decisions. What this means is that a granted patent, for example, in Canada, that provides exclusive rights to prevent others from making, using, selling, or importing your invention, but only in Canada. So if you plan to sell or manufacture elsewhere, speak with a qualified IP professional about where and when to file your IP applications, and do this before disclosing any enabling details. So the good news is there are international agreements that simplify the process and the costs of obtaining and maintaining IP rights in multiple markets. These so-called filing mechanisms are available for patents, trademarks, and industrial designs. So again, we do recommend working with a patent or trademark agent, and ideally someone with experience in your sector of innovation and in filing and obtaining IP rights, as well as enforcing your rights in the target markets that you're interested in. Okay, so mistake number 3. This is disclosing too much information too soon or to the wrong people. Just imagine you have this fantastic idea. You've got a prototype that works, and you're really excited to launch and get some clients and make some money, right? It's kind of the whole point. But you need cash to make that all happen. So you approach a few investors, and they want details about your invention or service or technology solution. And believe me, I understand it is tempting to reveal confidential details to potential investors or partners, or to people at trade shows or during a Kickstarter campaign. But think about the risk that entails and why it's smart to minimize what you say and to whom you disclose information before you file applications to formally protect your IP and implement business practices to protect the full value of any trade secrets. So again, I can tell you the risk of copycats or a manufacturer that you thought you could trust, making and selling your invention or using your trademarks to pass off inferior goods. This is a very real risk. So disclosing information too soon can also prevent you from getting a patent. Most countries have a first to file system rather than the old first to invent. So what it means is even if you can prove you were the first to invent something, you'll lose the race if someone else learns the details you disclosed too soon and files an application before you. So the best practice here is to mitigate risk number 3 is to talk about what your invention can do and not exactly how. So carefully assess the precise details you actually need to disclose and do so on a strict need-to-know basis and after establishing a confidentiality or non-disclosure agreement. Okay, now I have to say that the reality is we all know that experienced investors won't always sign a non-disclosure agreement. So again, talk about what your technology can do and not exactly how, unless you've done your due diligence on them and you've decided taking that risk is worthwhile. So as far as trade shows and Kickstarters go, put together a non-confidential pitch and practice it so you're prepared if someone approaches you wanting more information than they really need to have. One tip is to assume that everyone works for a competitor and have that mindset when you're talking to people you don't know. Now, when it comes to confidential information of commercial value, in other words, trade secrets, employees are unfortunately the ones most likely to disclose them. and that can happen inadvertently or purposely. So segment your business confidential information so no one has the full picture except you, and control access to the pieces. So, and give access only to the employees who legitimately need that information to do their jobs. Also ensure that your employee and contractor agreements cover confidentiality, and remind everyone about your working expectations from time to time, and do exit interviews when someone leaves to ensure they fully understand the consequences of leaking your trade secrets. So I know the promotion for the Lunch Without Lunch today talked about 3 mistakes, but I'm throwing in a 4th for free because what's the point of protecting your IP and paying good money to do that if you're not prepared and have the resources to enforce your rights? Something to think about. So a common misperception is that once you have a granted patent or have registered industrial designs, trademarks, or copyrights, that the IP offices in each country will police your IP rights for you. They don't. So you need to have a plan and a budget to monitor the marketplace for any infringement, and be prepared to take action to enforce your IP rights. And that doesn't have to mean going to court every time. There's a range of different options to resolve IP disputes. And I'll share the link for that shortly. So again, thank you all for taking your lunchtime to be here on this whirlwind tour of common IP mistakes. And thanks also to the fine folks at Alberta Rainforest, Bridget, Amber, and Lan, our resident rock star and co-host today. So we can open for questions. And also, if anyone has an IP lesson they've learned or have learned through someone else, please do go ahead and share that. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Marnie. We do have a few questions in the chat. Maybe we'll just go back to a couple here. We have, could you share what you see as a red flag for making or not making an IP filing?
A red flag for making or not making, kind of a broad question. I wouldn't have too much to add. Is the person speaking of
Tommy, do
patents
you
or
want to jump
trademarks?
I think this question was from Tommy.
Yeah, it's from me. Yeah, and identify myself as a lawyer, so that's maybe the nature of the question. A lot of times, you know, startups think that they've got the next great mousetrap, and in fact, they don't. It's a cool idea, but they sometimes talk to, you know, their friends and community and say, oh, you know, you've got to go to the mat here and, you know, and register and do this and do that. And you know, I guess it's really just a feel type question, you know, when you'd say, kind of got to have a little bit of a business here before you start, you know, going to town in terms of, you know, protecting your perceived asset, if you will. So that's I guess when making it, and then the converse is really, you know, when, and maybe I've just answered it as well, when it's not such a great idea, and you know, you probably shouldn't make the spend the money and make the claim, because it's not insignificant if you do it right. But again, if you've got zero revenues and you're, you know, forecasting, you know, there's places where I guess I'd say you can spend your money maybe wiser. Again, obviously totally dependent on each fact scenario. So I probably asked enough or said enough. I'll shut up for now and listen to your answer.
Thanks, Tom. Very appreciative that you bring that to light. Yeah, absolutely. One of the things I like to say, and it sometimes shocks people, but it goes like this: just because you can patent doesn't mean you should.
Yeah.
Right? Think about the costs of obtaining a patent in each of your target markets versus your anticipated revenues. Right? Do the math and ensure it makes sense for you. Also, consider whether protecting an early innovation as a trade secret is possible, particularly for the pre-revenue startups. If what you have cannot be reverse engineered, it's an option very much worth considering.
Right.
And I'm finding more and more that savvy investors, they understand the value of trade secrets, particularly in the world of AI and data. How's that, Tom? Anything to add?
Yeah, that's really good. No, I think that's an excellent idea. The other one is, when it comes to names, so much now is brand, right? It's all about brand. And, although it's not federal protection, it's something that you can do in Alberta, and that is register the business, which oftentimes is the product or the service that you're going to, conduct provincially under the Local Business Names Act. That's sort of that's a first place that you would normally do a set of searches when it comes to a funky name that you want to hang on to. You don't want to get into a battle like what happened many years ago when there was a company called The Brick, and one entity registered The Brick federally and the other one registered it provincially, and there was a battle. But I mean, it doesn't need to be necessarily a battle. If you've registered a name and you're using it, that goes some way. When you eventually decide, I want to actually trademark that name.
So on that, Tom, so SIPO recommends, before you register a business name or lock down an internet domain name, do a quick search.
Yeah.
You can start with the Canadian Trademarks Database,
Yeah.
or go to the link I've put in chat. Second to the last, it's the DIY preliminary trademark search. This is the World Intellectual Property Organization, a global brand database. The interface is a little off-putting to work with, but give it 10 minutes, it'll start to make sense, and it's free, and it's very worthwhile doing that before you decide to go ahead and either register a business name or proceed. And I should also mention, there is a certain level of protection through common law use of a trademark, and that's within the local market where your customers identify with your brand. However, if you do plan to do business across Canada or abroad, we strongly recommend registering a trademark formally.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
I see we have Andrew, who's also a patent agent, smiling there from a distance. Do you have anything to add to the conversation, Andrew?
I'll just say hi. I guess I love patents because they let the little guy stand up to the big guy. It's basically a federal law that you wrote. It has the force of the federal government of the country you apply in, but you get to write it yourself. So they can be very useful when it makes sense business wise.
Where are you based, Andrew, may I ask?
Yeah, I'm here in Calgary.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I'll sometimes partner with agents to do a co-presentation. So
okay, cool. Yeah, I wrote down your email because I don't think you and I have talked, but I'm a member in IPIC and go to quite a few events when they're held, but here in Calgary.
Excellent. Thank you for taking part today.
Yeah, thanks.
Brigitte or Lan, you've probably had a chance to read the questions.
Yeah.
Any pop out at you?
I think there was just one more from is it Dave's Garage? Hi. It was just around well, it's maybe to kind of from a lens of the rainforest. We talk about sharing of ideas and knowledge sharing and collaboration to increase the velocity of innovation. And so it might be a question more for some experienced founders out there, or for Marnie, if you want to chime in, whoever, around this balance. And you spoke to it a bit, Marnie, around not giving away the secret sauce, but giving away, you have to sell your brand and your product. So are there any founders out in the room today that would want to maybe comment on striking that balance? I see Brad's here. Brad, can I pick on you?
Striking a balance on the level of investment on protection, or is that what the
Yeah,
question was?
well, really just how much we share and how much we don't share, and yeah, how
Should we be
I-
sharing
I,
ideas at Rainforest?
of
I
course we should.
think, you know, we've operated in a different world for the last 20 years. I hear, you know, and kind of agree with Tom's perspective. We in the investment community see so many deals and have so many conversations, and really, you know, there's very important work to be done on the patent side of thing, and keeping control of your IP. But if you run your shop with the garage doors closed and delude yourself by thinking you've come up with the next greatest thing, and not reach out to your community and not tweak your idea and pivot for support based on those conversations, then 99.9 times you're going to have played it wrong. And maybe once in 1,000 times you have something enormously proprietary. But really, on balance, we would need to see as an investor that you're properly protected, that the IP is your own, that you don't have in your history these complicated co-founder divorce type situations where they would have a claim against your IP. So keeping those records tidy is important, and being rigorous about that is important, and that's what we're talking about today. So I support that, but it's not as important as really fundamentally, I think, as Tom pointed out, getting your product shaped by the market and tweaked by customers and worked on. So I guess on balance, I would err in my companies. I would love for my founders to have more conversations with competitors, as opposed to thinking that they have the secret sauce that the competitor could never come up with to see what's going on. And in my own personal example, I often tell founders, when we started our last operating company many years ago, you know, we were quite experienced in the space, and I took a month to travel around the US and around Europe, and had long meetings with each of our competitors to tell them exactly what it was that we were doing, the approaches that we planned on taking. And that really was the theory that there's really nothing too dramatically different that we could do. And the real game, I would say to people, is to share your strategies and compete on the execution. And to delude yourself to think that, well, because I'm not telling anyone what I've secretly done here, I'm going to prevail and carry the day, has just been proven wrong thousands and thousands and thousands of times. And once in a while, it's not the case, but don't manage for those exception type situations. Is that useful, Bridget, or does anyone
I think that's super
disagree with that?
I think that's super useful, and I've also observed this mentality with people in the rainforest looking to find co-founders, but who don't want to build trust through, you know, conversations around their product. So thanks, Brad.
Yeah, and as an example, you know, I think Tom would remember we lived in this, you know, this world a couple decades ago of non-disclosure agreements, and there's a time and a place for that. But in discussions now that we would have with founding teams, for them to approach an investor or an angel and say, you know, before we have a conversation, I'm going to have you sign this NDA, that's very outdated thinking, and an approach that would be very off-putting to anybody today.
Just on that, Brad, I don't know if I've heard you refer to me 3 times in a little spiel, but I appreciate it. It's interesting though, and I think I'd be curious in your reaction. Completely agree on the approach on NDAs insofar as the startup community in Calgary, Alberta, even Canada generally. But, you know, sadly, a lot of founders have to go south of the 49th to get funding. And, you know, it really depends, my experience, as to who you run into. And there's people, and a lot of them, that will say, not talking unless you know, get NDAs done. And it's, you know, you sort of go, well, gee, how come it's like that? It's, you know, but unfortunately, you got to respond to what, I guess, the, you know, the market that you're in is asking, whether you like it or not.
I could add one little thing, just a lot of, if people are nervous about disclosing their ideas to a potential investor without having an NDA and nobody wants to sign an NDA, well, something you could do, they could consider, is just do a low cost filing. Just take the slide deck or whatever materials that you're actually going to present and submit that as a patent application. And it can be done yourself online. And it's fairly easy. It's around $100 in the States or $200 in Canada to do that. And if what you are disclosing is enabling and it would be making it available to the public, well, you filed for a patent before you had your meetings, so your rights are still preserved worldwide. And on the other hand, if what you disclose to people is not enabling, and then it wouldn't have been a public disclosure anyway, and you're okay because but both ways you're covered in that situation. So you don't have to rely on the low cost slide deck filing that you did, but you could put it there just in case you need it.
Jesse has a question.
Yeah, I was kind of curious. I've heard that comment made several times about, you know, angels and and investors not wanting to sign NDAs, and I haven't quite wrapped my head around what the resistance to that is. I personally can't really see what the downside is to signing an NDA. So I was hoping maybe you could expand on what that resistance is and what the cost of signing an NDA is.
Sure. The cost to me of signing an NDA, if I see potentially, you know, if I see 50 deals in a year or approaches in a year, is that I might make promises to you that would preclude me from then doing a deal, you know, 40 weeks down the road that I could have had no way of knowing was going to come across my desk. And then I would open myself up personally to damages from you. And so it's, if I'm in the business of seeing 50 potential deals a year, then as the years stack up, then I'm opening myself up to that kind of exposure and liability. And again, you know, I'm looking for teams that believe that it's the execution that's going to carry the day anyways, right? You have to be rigorous about keeping these records with respect to your right to use your IP, and I'm not discounting that at all. But that would be the resistance in the angel community, is that when you're seeing a volume of deals and other people would be seeing 5 or 6 times as more than that, then they would open themselves up for a liability.
Also, quite often they want you to sign an NDA before you know anything at all about it. Well, you may have just signed an NDA with Joe the day before for exactly the same thing. So if you can't explain what you're doing without revealing the super secret magic sauce enough to get people interested, you know, seems to me you don't really have the ability to go out there and sell it either, because that's what you've got to do. So why would this thing exist in the world? Not necessarily how does it work?
Yeah.
If I can jump in with one other example, I, as a programmer, have signed NDAs for stupid ideas and for ideas that have already been done. And so I now have these signed documents out there in the world that I never should have signed. I don't know if it's going to bite me someday in the future. I wish I hadn't done it.
Okay, awesome conversation, and I hate to cut it off, but we'll bring it into smaller rooms right now so we have a chance to meet each other. There's a question from Dean there, if any experts in the room want to answer around timelines for NDAs. So I'm going to send you off into one probably breakout room, be a bit larger than usual, but I think it'll work better. And then we'll come back at 5:02 for announcements. I'm sorry, I have a monkey climbing behind me here, so I might get distracted. Welcome back, everybody. We are going to head into some announcements. And so one announcement is that you can save the morning, if you're a Calgarian in an area, you can save the morning of May the 4th for our Rainforest Summit. No details, sorry, he'll just join me. No details yet or registration link yet, but if you want to save that morning and attend, we should have the registration page up just after the Easter long weekend. And another announcement is that next week during Lunch Without Lunch, we are going to try a new networking software that's from a Calgary-based startup. Oh, Amber, the name escapes me. ShareMe.chat. And so we've got some cool rooms set up in there, and we'll test that out during the networking, and then we'll also leave it open after the hours. So please come help us test that as a new tool to use in the community. And any other announcements out there? Actually, Amber, do you want to start with another announcement for Rainforesters We Love or Role Models We Love?
Yeah, so we're still looking for people to nominate rainforest role models. So anyone that has inspired your journey into tech innovation or just inspires you in life, you can nominate them at the link. I'll send it in the chat. Nominate them, give them a few reasons why you love them so much, and we'll put them on social media and our website and blog. And yeah.
Cool. Yeah, share some more stories out there. Any other announcements? This is a rare occurrence.
While we have the forum or floor here and there's an opportunity for it, I'm Graham. I'm with Cybera. Some of you have met me. Some of you this may be for the first time, but we just wanted to let people know, if you're an emerging data scientist, you're looking for some experience, we're running a hackathon. That's registration actually opens in a week's time. And the theme is around rural connectivity. So you're going to have a chance to manage some data. There's going to be cash prizes available. And really, rural connectivity has been a major theme that has come up over the past year. It's been an issue that we all know about, but it's really been sort of accelerated and amplified because of the pandemic. So if you want to know more, I'm on Slack, and then feel free to message me, and I'll put the links on there as well too.
Awesome. Thanks, Graham. Anyone else? I'll urge you all to check out Startup Calgary's calendar. They have been increasing their efforts with getting everything up on there. And then Debbie's not here today, but Debbie Budd also has a calendar going for, I think, province-wide events. And you can catch her on LinkedIn with the link to that normally every week.
Amber,
all right.
Where are we doing the nominations, Bridget, Amber?
I posted a link in the chat.
Okay, thanks. Got it. I see it.
That's great. And once you nominate someone, we will obviously check in with them to ensure they're cool with us sharing their story more broadly. On that note, we always leave the room open if anyone would like to stick around for a little bit. I will have to close it in about 15, but if you want to stick around for a bit and chat, a big thank you to Marnie and to everybody who took part in the conversation today. So have a great week, everybody.